Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Folkscape.live. We're back with one of our Q&A specials. My name's Alice Jones, and tonight we're promoting a live stream gig that's happening on Friday, on the 7th of March, and it's live from the live room in Saltaire, and the singing is going to be done by our guest, Josienne Clarke, award-winning singer and songwriter, record label boss, One Human Song Industry. Hello, welcome to Folkscape.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
It's fabulous to talk to you. I'm going to start off. Would it be all right for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want us to know? That would be fab.
I am Josienne Clarke, singer, songwriter, voice of a haunted angel, professional miserablist, and now Sandy Denny impersonator.
Nice. What could be better?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so, as I said, you're doing a live stream gig on Friday. What, if it's not too complicated a question, what got you started with performing music?
My dad had a guitar at home and he used to sing on like a Saturday morning in the kitchen. He used to do like Elvis covers and the odd bit of James Taylor. And I sort of learnt harmonies, like putting my fingers in my ears and singing along with my sister. And it's sort of gone from there. He used to listen to like Peter Green and Don McLean, so those are sad songwriters. And so I got into sad songs quite early on. And then I've just sort of followed that blindly ever since.
Yeah. And have you always been interested in writing the songs? Did you start somewhere else with it? Would you have started with doing cover songs and things, or?
When I was about 16, I thought I wanted to be a classical singer, which, you know, in retrospect was a terrible idea. But at the same time, I started writing songs as well. And so, you know, two paths diverged in a wood at some point, and I decided to do songwriting instead of classical singing.
So did that kind of happen at university? Were you at a point where you realised something wasn't resonating and you sort of went another way, or?
Yeah, I was just terrible at classical singing.
I find that hard to believe.
He sort of focuses the mind on songwriting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the folk stuff, have you always been interested in folk as well? When did you come to that type of music?
I did a live, like a sing around sort of open mic thing when I was about 17, and I did, I think it was Lily of the West, like a Joan Baez inspired version. And somebody said, "Oh, you actually sound like Sandy Denny," and that's where I got into Fairport and.
Oh, amazing.
And I sort of tracked back from Fairport to some of the like more traditional stuff that was influencing that, rather than having a sort of folky upbringing.
Yeah, because a lot of people assume, you know, I mean, you've performed in some amazing sort of folk settings and folk awards and all this kind of stuff, and I think there's a lot of people just assume you've probably grown up with it, and that's how you end up being a folkie. But there's so many people that come to it later on. They find out these stories behind the songs, and they want to delve into it a bit more.
It's just all these songs about people being like unendingly sad and dying, but like with trees, and that's just appealed, you know.
Yeah, the whole terribly devastating song with the happiest tune you've ever heard. I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. There was this beautiful nightingale, and then some people died, and etc. Yeah.
Yeah, so that appealed to your sensibilities on the song front.
Absolutely, it's got loads of melancholy, and I've always sort of been about that. Yeah.
Have you found, because I was reading up about you, and I know that you had quite a move, didn't you? You moved from where you were living in England up to somewhere is it quite isolated near in Scotland? Has that
I live.
changed the way that you write or perform or anything?
I live on the Isle of Bute, which isn't one of the like really remote islands. It's on the west coast, across from Glasgow.
Hmm.
So it's not like sort of out a Hebridean life. But I live in a flat that overlooks the sea. Like there's a window just there, and the sea is
Amazing.
there. Um, and I don't know that there's anything more inspiring than sitting with a chair in that window and writing songs. There's lots of sea imagery, lots of water imagery in a lot of my
Yeah.
songwriting, and that has a lot to do with it, I think. Yeah.
And luckily, a lot of sea-based misery as well to draw on, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of folk songs with a lot of sea-based misery, as you say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So I've got some questions here. People have been writing in the questions. For the people at home, you can still put your questions in to Josienne. There's Folkscape.live is where you can submit your questions, or in the chat of Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. So do keep sending your questions in. So there's some Sandy Denny based questions here. So
Yeah.
we're promoting this gig on Friday, which is Sandy Denny songs that you'd be touring for the next few months.
Yeah.
And we've got a question here. Say, Sandy Denny's song, Who Knows Where the Time Goes, has been covered by numerous artists. What does this song mean to you personally?
I mean, I feel like a lot of other people that I'm not sure that a better song's been written, and it sort of, you hear it and it like burrows in like deep, and it won't leave.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've talked about a lot in sort of the lead up to this Sandy Denny thing is how if you wander into a room and you sing Across the Evening Sky, the title of this tour, people will just sing the line back to you. People know it. You only have to say that, and people. And so it's like, in a way, like folk is this sort of like strange little subgenre, and yet that song has permeated so far that people who perhaps don't know anything else know that one.
Yeah, that's an amazing achievement, isn't it, as well, to write
Mm.
a song like that, that, it kind of transcends folk and it gets everywhere. And yeah, I grew up listening to that song. My mom's a huge Sandy Denny fan, so I've got lots of memories associated with that song. I've got another one here. You know Sandy Denny well musically, but has this venture prompted you to find out more about Sandy as a person?
Yeah, obviously, I started reading a lot of the biographies when I started doing this, and it's really interesting, sort of building up this picture of what kind of person she was, and how people are such complex beings that they can contain two almost opposing things. Like she was, in some ways, quite a nervous performer and quite a shy person, and yet she was also this, like, the lady, this huge like humorous, effervescent character as well. And I find that really interesting and kind of relatable, that you could be both so inward and so outward. And I feel
Yeah,
like that's all in the songs, isn't it? Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually if you found that to be a relatable thing, because I know you took a bit of a break from touring for a while, didn't you? And I wondered if that was something that resonated with you in terms of, performing is very different from creating the music. It's a different situation.
Yeah, I think that everybody, well, most people have a part of them that's kind of, inward and shy, and that for lots of performers you assume that they're all just huge extroverts, and that they must like wander the aisles of a supermarket singing loudly. And I'm not. I'm always trying to sort of like hide in the background of life in general, and I have this funny little performing space in which I feel most comfortable, which I think is in some ways is perhaps slightly different to Sandy. um yeah, but it's massively relatable. Yeah.
Did you find anything out about Sandy that was like completely a big shock that the people at home might not know, maybe?
No, the stuff that was interesting was there's a whole section about what she was like at school. She's quite
Oh yeah.
naughty, which I sort of enjoyed. I don't relate to that so much because I was just like a goody two shoes, but it's pretty interesting to sort of find out about her like really formative years. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do wonder what it must have been like. She's touring with blokes nearly exclusively, isn't she? And I think some of the impression you could get from her might be that she was a bit more sort of meek and shy. But I wonder how that went alongside with the touring situation. Because I know you've written a lot about what should we say, the male dominated aspect of our industry.
Yes.
Um, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it must have been quite difficult. And you sort of get the impression that I've got, and I'm basing this on what I've read. I don't have any sort of personal access to people who knew her, but is that perhaps she sort of had a kind of ebullience in that um, in the way that she related to people that perhaps was a kind of like protection against what must have been back then an even harder industry to be a sort of lone female in. Um, and perhaps that might be the root of why it was such a struggle for her in the end.
yeah, yeah. I mean, a really sad end. It's yeah, not worth thinking about. It's like too difficult to think about that somebody would that talented and that amazing would find themselves in that situation. It's a really sad thing. And do you talk much about Sandy in the show that you're doing, or is it just
Yeah.
singing a song?
I don't tend to sort of go, and she was born in Bland and she didn't know, because like I don't need to patronise my audience. They know all of this. They've read all the books.
Yeah.
And they know all the songs. No, I try to sort of one of the things that I say is like what a shame it is that she didn't know throughout her entire career how important these songs would be to people, that she left not knowing that they would be sung and remembered and treasured forever. And you feel like on some level, she must have known that, she kind of had that sort of spark that maybe she had an idea that this was like relevant and important and good. But also, her career is kind of punctuated with all this sort of like failure um, that she might have felt like was a failure. It wasn't doing quite as well as it should. And all that stuff's pretty relatable. Like you're never doing
Probably.
quite as well as you should, are you? Um,
No.
yeah.
I always find though when you talk to enough people, you eventually find out that everybody thinks the same thing, and that we're all just kind of living in this weird, sort of overly critical universe that we've found ourselves in. Yeah. I'll just ask another question from the list. Sandra says, Sandy faced challenges as a woman in the music industry during her time. How do you perceive the landscape for female artists today?
I mean, I think progress has certainly been made. I think sometimes people kid themselves about how much progress has been made. Still a lot of festival bills with massive men's names, and then maybe some also rans who are women. Um, yeah, it's funny like reading about some of that stuff. How much I think like some of the culture hasn't changed. The limits of what people think women are capable of still need more expansion.
Yeah, conscious thought as well, I always think, because I know a lot of people that, they don't really act with the strange kind of sexist views outwardly, but then some of the things that they say and ways that they behave kind of indicate that they're so ingrained that you have to be really conscious to sort of get out of treating people like that.
I think I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like some of the assumptions that people make that they don't even realize they're making, like the man in the band must be the one who like does all the important music and women are just there to sort of like fluff a bit of stuff on the top. And I feel like Sandy Denny is proof of how much like intellectual creative power can come from one tiny woman.
Yeah, because I'd like to think most of the bands that she were in, they would, I doubt they would have done as well without Sandy. You know, there's a reason why they reached the heights that they did.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for another question. Oh, this is a good one, and I don't know if it's going to be easy to answer. If Sandy were here today, what do you think she'd say about your interpretations of her songs?
Oh God. I mean, I feel like I've got two halves of me battling over what the answer to that would be. I guess half of me is like, no, I mean, they're solid versions, and they're not exactly the same. They bring a little flavour, but I haven't changed anything that doesn't need changing. Um, the other half of me is just, like terrified at the idea of what are you doing? Leave them alone. Yeah.
I mean, it does seem terrifying, you know, like that sort of thing. It's quite a big mantle to kind of, yeah, to,
Well, people do evenings of music of like great artists that are still around, but I'm not sure that I'd have the courage for that.
well, there we go. And so, because I did read something that you were saying about when you were interpreting Sandy's songs, that you felt that there was so much already there that was kind of, I mean, not perfect, nothing's perfect, but the emotion behind things, even little stresses on phrasing and the way that things are being sung. It sounds like you've really listened in a lot of depth to all these songs that you are doing a version of. And
Yeah, there's lots of tiny details where you think, why has she done that? And then you sort of dig into it and try and do a version of it and try and change it, and you're like, no, 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 that inflection is there because it does something emotionally, and it's all sort of knitted into the song. So there's only so far you can ever take them away before they're just not, they just don't do the same thing anymore.
yeah, and because you're concentrating on the singing, so you're not going to be playing any instruments on this tour, is that right? So you've got a band that you're working with. Who are your band, if you don't mind me asking?
I've got Dave Hamblett on the drums and Matt Robinson on the piano and keyboards, and they are primarily jazz players. But of course, Sandy's music has a lot of these little jazz inflections,
Yeah.
so they really come into their own
Ah,
at that point. And then I've got Alec Bowman Clarke, who is my husband, who plays the bass. That's his double bass
yeah,
behind me.
but
Uh,
not his toy shark behind you. That's not his, no.
no, that's my son's Baby Shark. That Baby Shark does actually play the tune Baby Shark.
Oh, and the battery hasn't run out yet.
No, well, I've taken the batteries out of it. That's why it's not making any noise now. Um,
Understandable.
and then Lucas Drinkwater is doing some guitar for some of the gigs. He's not every one of them, but yeah.
Fab. And are you very much in control of the musical aspect of it as well? Have you been quite prescriptive over what you want done with arrangements and things, or has it been more collaborative?
Yeah, I've got quite a clear idea of what I think we need to be doing with them. I guess what I was sort of hoping was that as we all played them together as a group, that little arrangement changes would sort of happen naturally,
Yeah.
and that obviously I haven't recorded um, most of them yet, and that perhaps in the future when I can do that, like we'll have sort of molded them into these perfect versions of them by the end of the tour, by end of June.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how those things, the number of times I've sort of done an album and then gigged and found out that by the end of all the gigs that all the songs are totally different to that album. It's quite a strange way we're having to do things, really, and it's quite nice to do a tour and then record the things.
Because I'd always like record and then take that out. These are the definitive versions that I've made in the studio, and then
Yeah.
But I just couldn't do it that way this time. So yeah, I'm letting them evolve naturally in their natural habitat.
Yeah, organic.
Mm.
So, would there be any plans to record, do you think, or are you just kind of doing the tour and seeing how it goes?
I'm just trying to save up enough money to do it, really. I'd have done it already if
Yeah.
I had, spare sort of 10K lying around, but who does?
Not me.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point, though, actually. There was and that was another thing I read on one of your blog posts about the pricing of was it your last solo album?
Yeah.
Um, and talking about the costs involved and the fact that a lot of people don't really think about that fact that you're paying everybody else before you ever have a payday, if you ever do off the back of recording. So I found that really interesting. Have you had any problems of people sort of kicked off about the price of things, or has anybody mentioned that they don't think it's okay or that they support?
No, I've not really had any feedback about that. I've sort of mentioned it online, and somebody online, you know how people will online, um,
Yep.
throw in an opinion, and they sort of said, "Oh gosh, it's a bit expensive," and somebody else sort of chimed in and said, "Yeah, but they're also on streaming services."
Hmm.
So they said it was like a sort of financial barrier to music, but it isn't because of things like Spotify, like YouTube Music. Those things are all available to you for very little money um, if you want them, and the physical is just a bit more expensive, like a sort of musical Fabergé egg.
Hmm.
It's an exotic, rare thing that not everyone can have.
So you're still producing CDs then? You're still making and vinyl, is it as well?
Yeah, I guess I always felt like vinyl's the real thing, and CD's a condensed version of that. And so yeah, I'm gonna carry on making vinyl until I haven't got any room in the hallway anymore, and then just stop.
And they're so heavy to lug around with you, aren't they, for all the gigs and stuff? Yeah. So hopefully, if you do a Sandy Denny vinyl and you get another tour on the go, you'll just sell them all out and you won't have to take them home.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Right, I think we've got another question on here. Derek says, Sandy collaborated with Led Zeppelin on the Battle of Evermore. If you could collaborate with any artist, past or present, who would it be?
I guess I always had a hankering to do some work with Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac. Not going to happen. But just that man can make a guitar sing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so that's you know that's the one that always springs to mind, I think.
yeah. I do this thing though when I ask people questions like that because I'm so folky minded. I'm really glad that you added from Fleetwood Mac because I was going to go.
Yeah,
Right, so the tour that you've already done a couple of dates, have you? I think I saw we won at Celtic Connections in Glasgow.
yeah, that's right.
Was that
Yeah,
fun?
and King's Place in London. Yeah,
So they're the two gigs that have been and gone. How did you feel they went? Did you enjoy them?
yeah. It's funny. Celtic Connections was great fun, but I felt like, well, I haven't done well enough, and I was having like anxiety dreams about not remembering my words properly, and I was sort of panicking all the way down in the car to King's Place. Oh, it just it's like it's such important music, and everybody loves it, and like, what if it's not good enough? Um, and then there were two standing ovations and a 5-star review. So I've shut up about that now.
Yeah, possibly irrelevant worryings.
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing though. That must have felt really, yeah, calming
I
after
was
that ride
really
there.
surprised. I was like, "You,
Yeah.
why are they leaving? Are they what? No, they liked it.
Yeah.
Okay, phew, good.
Well, and that's the thing in it as well. You could think it's as amazing as you want to, but if you're doing it for an audience, and they'll tell you if it's amazing or not, won't they? And they clearly have voted with their feet, literally.
it's just music that's so important to people. You
Yeah.
know, people get really really exercised about it, and you can't muck about. You've got to get it right.
Well, I was just thinking that as you were saying about considering the lyrics and getting stuff right, because it's all right if you write a song or if it's your arrangement of a folk song and you maybe, some of the words aren't what you intended or they're not what they were on the recording, that's a different case from singing these songs that there's going to be people in the audience that will know all the words and like every minute detail. That must be quite an amazing thing to come up against.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that was giving me the most concern, because her music is so wordy. There's so many words, and they're all really like intricate and important, and you can't misplace one of them, because then you've missed this whole other thread of things that are going on. Um, so yeah, um, I have some lyrics sort of near me. I don't tend to need them now, but I was sort of really giving myself a hard time about having, cheat sheets. Um, but I don't. I mean, I've got a pretty good memory, so I don't know how anyone is managing to do that without ever referring um, to look at what the fourth verse is.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's the weird thing, isn't it, where the words are stored. Sometimes, if you think about it too hard, that's when they disappear. But if you just kind of go with the flow,
Oh, there's also Matty Groves, which has about 4 billion verses, I think.
yeah, I think that's official. Yeah. Right. So, have we got any more questions? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, we'll keep sending your questions in. We'd love a few more questions. So, what can we expect from the gig that you'll be doing, the Saltaire?
Well, a lot of ballads, because she wrote a lot of those. But we've tried to sort of pepper that with some of the more upbeat ones. Given Autopsy a go, that's got some pretty hefty time signature changes in it,
Oh
and
wow.
so that is wild but
Yeah.
impressive when it comes off. Yeah.
Amazing. So that must be quite good fun and keep you on your toes, like.
Yeah, it's an amazing one to sing. You're always sort of on the edge of like, oh, will the whole thing just unravel? But that's sort of what's like brilliant about it. Yeah.
And how nice is it to just be there to kind of, that you don't have to play an instrument as well. I mean, I say don't have to, but the fact that you can just concentrate on the words and the song.
Yeah, I just felt like there's so much, like they're not easy to sing. Um, the vocal melodies are hard, and the range is wide, and there's lots of words. And I just felt like I've got enough to do without trying to learn the guitar parts that are like incredibly hard to some of her songs as well. And it just gives you a bit of sort of physical freedom as
Yeah,
well. You're just embodying the song and not
absolutely.
embodying the song. Um, and not sort of like fussing over whether it's, G or D.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it can really split your mind, can't it? Those kinds of things. Like I was saying about the song words being in the back of your head. Sometimes you
Mm.
do that thing where you look down and go, "Oh no, I've got a guitar. What am I meant to do?" And then you've missed the fourth verse. It's
Yeah, no, it's better with them without having any potential distractions. I can just live in the song for the 3.5, 4 minutes that it's happening.
I was going to say you're not going to go full method Sandy then for the whole tour.
No, no, I'm not. And when I said I was like impersonating Sandy Denny, I don't really mean that. Um, I'm not, I'm not sort of dressing up um, in like a big caftan um, to do it. No, um, sort of a little more sort of cerebral and internal than that.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of like pre-gig routines? Is there any way that you kind of get yourself ready for doing a gig?
I mean, it depends on the gig. Certainly, these early ones, it was just chucking back a fair amount of Jägermeister. Um,
That is epic.
I have that in my hip flask for it. My husband bought me a hip flask, Because it tastes the same as vocal zones. So you can sort of switch between the two. If you don't know what vocal zones are, they
I
are a sort of
do.
singer's holy grail, little pastels that really are the only thing that are good for singing. And they taste like sort of weird aniseed crap.
Yeah,
Um,
creosote.
yeah, like if petrol was a lozenge. Yeah, and sort of Jägermeister is the sort of an accompaniment, like you have wine with a certain type of food. Jägermeister vocal zones, that's the pairing.
Big. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you've checked there's no horrible interactions between the vocal zones and the Jägermeisters. You're
I
fully.
think I'd know by now. I've been doing
I
it for a
think you must.
while.
Yeah. That's amazing. That is quite a pre-gig ritual, I must say.
Yeah.
But you kind of like, do you really enjoy doing the performance, or do you get kind of nervous beforehand and then enjoy it once you're on there, or?
I do. I mean, I've always got nervous. There's that sort of probably about 10 minutes before I go on. I ask myself some serious questions about why this is my life choice and why would you put yourself through this, you know, 30 times a year at least. Um, but actually, like, particularly with this material, when I get out there to sing it, it is so much fun. And some videos came back from King's Place. Someone had videoed it, and I was just smiling the whole time. I just can't believe they've let me do it.
Which is an amazing thing for an audience as well, because I think,
Yeah.
they can see that happening, and it really helps them relate to you as well, and enjoy a gig a lot more, I think. Definitely. Oh, it sounds ace. Yeah, so just to recap for the people at home, Josienne's doing a gig at the Live Room in Saltaire, and that's on Friday, the 7th of March. It's going to be live streamed on, I know I said Facebook Live, I don't mean that, I mean Folkscape Live. And there are tickets for that if you log onto the website. If you're already a subscriber, you'll get admission to that already. And yeah, so we're just talking about Sandy Denny, and what is Sandy's influence on the music that you create yourself? Is there quite a lot that you take from her?
Yeah, when I look back at the songs that I've written over the years, I can sort of see because one of the reasons that like this over any other type of music that I could go and play is that I couldn't say that anyone else has influenced me as much
Oh
as a
wow.
songwriter as well as a singer. Um, and there were like particular songs in my back catalogue that I won't mention because I don't want to draw your attention to how much of an influence there is. But there are ones where I'm like, oh, that's just my rendering of yeah.
And did that come a long time after hearing the song, or did you immediately kind of know that's what you'd done, or?
No, it was years afterwards. I was like, oh, that is just really like, you've just assimilated and then yeah.
So huge influence on you and your creative processes and things. That's a really amazing thing to be able to go out and do a whole show that's a kind of a
Yeah.
tribute to that person. That's really special. There's I just want to sort of wrap up the interview by asking you. So after the Sandy Denny tour, so it's called Across the Evening Sky, isn't it? The whole tour. Have you got any future plans for music making or not music making, or anything that you've got on your list to do?
Yes, I've just crowdfunded for my next record
Wow.
um, that I'm working on now and will come out in the autumn this year of 13 original songs of mine. You may or may not see Sandy Denny similarities with those. I'll let you decide.
Won't mention it if I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of doing like the two things sort of run along parallel. I'm still doing my solo gigs and writing, and the Sandy Denny thing rolls along, and I'll just carry on doing that till everyone's sick of it.
And are you still crowdfunding that?
No, that's done.
Okay.
I met my target and my stretch goal.
Oh,
So
ace.
I'll ask for more than that. Yeah.
That's fabulous. And so are you now at a point where you're going to go into the studio, or have you even done that already?
I'm not. No comment. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So there's a new solo album on the horizon,
Yeah.
and nothing more will be said.
It's just for reasons to do with the project. I'm not ever going to say exactly where or exactly when, and that makes no sense right now. But when it comes out, it will.
Oh, okay, I like that. A little bit cryptic, but there's totally
Yeah.
a reason behind it. Oh, fab. And solo gigs? Have you got many solo gigs coming up this year?
I'm just starting to book them, get a tour together in the autumn to go with the record.
Mm.
From now until June, it's all about Sandy Denny,
Yeah,
and then there'll be some festival stuff in the summer, and then I'm banging on about my new record.
brilliant. And the tour's quite extensive, isn't it? The Sandy Denny tour. It's already started technically, but I believe Friday's the first gig of a run of gigs, isn't it?
Yeah,
In Saltaire, and then you're going from like Newcastle all the way down to Penzance and heading
yeah,
up to Cardiff as well.
yep. We go. We're down in Cambridge. We're doing Cardiff. We're doing the southwest. We've got Newcastle, Suffolk. Yeah, all like
All the best places.
all over the show. Yeah.
And are you on a constant tour, or are there gaps between some of the dates?
No, there's some runs in it, and then there's a few where there's just a couple. Because I have a 2-year-old, you can't go away and leave them for a month.
Really?
You just can't. It's frowned upon.
Yeah, yeah. I think people feel like they have things to say about that sort of thing, but
Yeah, yeah.
brilliant. Yeah. So I think probably we've asked a lot of the things we wanted to ask. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I mean that was very comprehensive and a real pleasure. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for talking to us, and I hope the gig goes really well. So, recap for everybody at home: 7th of March, Friday, Josienne's doing her Across the Evening Sky Sandy Denny songs tour, and it's starting on Friday. If you don't catch the live stream when it happens, if you've paid for it or subscribed for it, you can watch it again for up to a year, I think. But also, because we want to support live music, maybe have a look at Josienne's website. What's your website address?
JosienneClarke.com.
Have a look on that website and check out the dates and buy some merchandise. And yeah, good luck with your gig, Josienne, and the whole tour. It's been really fab to talk to you. And I've just got one thing left to say, that we're going to be back on Wednesday with another Q&A session. That's with Sir Steve Knightley, and that's ahead of a gig that he's got on Saturday, the 8th of March. But also that we're going to Dublin on St Patrick's Day, 17th of March, that is, as if you didn't know that, to live stream the Irish House Party. And it says here on my little prompt, Sally's mum says they're great. And if she says they're great, they must be absolutely awesome. So thank you ever so much for being here tonight, everybody. Thank you, Josienne, for talking to us. And yeah, that leaves it for me to say bye-bye.